Right in.
Testing.
But I really want to play with that toy now.
Testing. Oh, it's gonna catch all of that.
Oh.
Let me see. Testing. All right, yeah, that's solid. That's deep. Y'all let me know that, man. Can't just let it. Nah. All right. Shalom Israel. Yahweh Shem Yahshua Barakatham. Yahweh Shema Latham Bashem Yahushai. It's the Feast of Dedication tonight. We're going to be going over the history of the Feast of Dedication. We're going to go into some precepts regarding everything, what you know as Hanukkah, or you may know it as Hanukkah. It's really Hanukkah in the Hebrew. The Feast of Dedication, Feast of Lights. We're going to go into the Apocrypha quite a bit. We're going to do something a little, not different, but I want to go a little bit more in the history aspect of this breakdown. We're going to go into some prophecies. We're going to go into some history. We got some different sources we're going to be using for tonight's lesson, tonight's class, so you can fully understand what we're doing here tonight. Go ahead, brother. You got a question? Oh, okay, no sweat. All right, so what I want you to do is, so we're going to be breaking this down. I want you to read Psalms, or it's like Proverbs 2 and 2. I want you to read Proverbs 2 and 2, because to understand this Bible, there's a formula to understanding this Bible, right? Go ahead.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 2, verse 2.
Right.
So that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom.
What should you do?
Incline thine ear unto wisdom.
You're supposed to incline your ear unto wisdom. Read on.
And apply thine heart to understanding.
And you're supposed to apply your heart, your mind to understanding. Read Proverbs 4 and 7. You're supposed to apply your mind and your heart to understanding. Right?
The book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 7. Wisdom is the principal thing.
Wisdom is the what?
The principal thing.
Wisdom is the principal thing. Read on.
Therefore, get wisdom.
And you want to get wisdom. Read on.
And with all thy getting.
And with all thy getting of wisdom. Read on.
Get understanding.
Get what?
Get understanding.
You're supposed to get understanding. We read in Proverbs 2 and 2. Incline thy mind unto understanding. Proverbs 4 and 7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all thy getting of wisdom, get understanding. Now, how does one get understanding? Get Psalms 119, verse 142, to show how one is to get understanding. This is what the Christians don't understand, and we're going to help you understand it tonight. Go ahead.
The book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse 142.
Read.
Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness.
Right, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness. Go ahead.
And thy law.
Oh, it's like you're not 142. Psalms 119 and hold on. Not 142. That's the truth, right?
Right.
Okay. Psalms 119, 104. There it is.
Psalms chapter 119, verse 104.
Read.
Through thy precepts.
Through thy what?
Through thy precepts.
Through thy precepts. Read on.
I get understanding.
How does one get understanding?
Through thy precepts.
Through thy precepts. Now, what's a precept? Go to Isaiah 28 and 10 to define biblically what a precept is. So we know that we must get understanding. That's what every Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian should aspire to receive, understanding of what the Feast of Dedication is all about, right? And not only that, but all other biblical topics, historical topics that are detrimental to your salvation, right? Go ahead.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 28, verse 10.
Mm-hmm.
For precept.
For what?
For precept.
Read.
Must be upon precept.
Can be upon precept.
Must be upon precept.
It must be upon precept. Read on.
Precept upon precept.
Precept upon precept.
Line upon line.
Line upon line.
Line upon line.
Line upon line.
Here a little.
Where a little.
Here a little.
Here a little.
And there a little.
And there a little. Read on.
For with stammering lips.
No, now go to verse 13. What is a precept?
Verse 13.
Uh-huh.
But the word of the Lord.
But the what?
But the word of the Lord.
Read.
Was unto them precept upon precept.
That's it. The word of the Lord. What's the word of the Lord? Go to Isaiah 34:16. What's the word of the Lord? Where can you find the words of the Lord? The words of the Most High.
The book of Isaiah chapter 34, verse 16.
Go ahead.
Seek ye out of the book of the Lord.
Seek out the book of the Lord.
And read.
And what?
And read.
Why? Because that's where the words of the Lord are. Right? Go ahead.
No one of these shall fail.
No one of these shall fail. We're going to come back to that. Right? Now, this... What did you just read at?
Isaiah 34 and 16.
Isaiah 34:16. Now, to understand this breakdown, right? First, let's go to 1 John 2 and 6. Because you got people in the Christian church, and not only the Christian church, the Muslim mosque, being tied up in Catholicism, who believe they really serve God and Christ, but they truly don't. They truly don't. We're going to show you that they'll celebrate Thanksgiving, but they don't know the first thing about any feast day or holy day. Now, for the record, the Feast of Dedication is not a holy day per se, but it is a feast day. Like, for example, because the reason why it's not a holy day is because it's not listed in Leviticus 23rd chapter, but it's a memorial, just like Purim, right? But because it's not listed in Leviticus 23, like, for example, Day of Atonement is a holy day. It's a Sabbath. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, Passover, Feast of Booths, right? Feast of First Fruits, right? Opening and closing of the Feast of Weeks. Those are holy days. This is a memorial, right? Which is why it's not being held as a Sabbath service. Three brothers up here, the wine being drunken, the showbread, etc. Right? But let's get 1 John 2 and 6.
The book of 1 John chapter 2, verse 6.
Go ahead.
He that saith he abideth in him.
He that saith he abideth in him. That's what people say, right? All people say, I abide in Christ. I know Christ. Christ know me. I love God. I was saved November 3rd, 1982. I remember the day I was saved. Right? And his shirt smelled like nothing but cigarettes. Go ahead.
He that saith he abideth in him.
What he got to do?
Ought himself also to walk.
Read it one more time. They didn't hear you.
He that saith he abideth in him, ought himself also so to walk.
Right. Ought himself also to walk. Also to walk is what? Like him. You understand? How did Christ walk? What did Christ do? Go to John chapter 10, verse 22. John chapter 10, verse 22.
The book of John chapter 10.
If he that said that he abided in him, you must walk as he walked. Right? Go ahead.
The book of John chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem.
It was at Jerusalem, Jerusalem, city of peace. Read on.
The feast of the dedication.
The feast of dedication. Read on.
And it was winter.
And it was winter. Right? Now, you see that Christ is keeping the feast of dedication. Christians don't keep the feast of dedication. You know why? Because they don't abide in Christ. And Christ don't abide in them. You understand? Now, read that one more time to show you that Christ kept the feast of dedication.
The book of John chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem.
It was at Jerusalem.
The feast of the dedication.
The feast of the dedication. Right?
And it was winter.
And it was a winter, man. And you see this menorah right here, how it's lit up. And it's lit because of the occasion of the Feast of Dedication, man. And we're going to go into the history of the significance of the menorah. But I want to show you something. Go to Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. Go to Revelation 1, verse 1.
The book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 1. The revelation of Hamashiach Yahushua.
Right. The revelation of Yahushua, read on.
Which the Most High gave unto him.
Which the Most High gave unto him, Christ, read on.
To show unto his servants.
To show unto who?
Unto his servants.
To show unto his servants. Now, who are his servants? Isaiah 44 and 21. Who are his servants? Everybody can be God's servant. Chinese people can't serve God. They can't be these servants of God. Samoans can't be these servants of God.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 44, verse 21.
To show what? Who the servants are in Revelation. Go ahead.
Remember these, O Jacob.
Oh, who?
O Jacob.
The world.
O Jacob.
Read.
And Israel.
And who?
And Israel.
Moab.
And Israel.
Elam.
And Israel.
Japhet.
And Israel.
Read.
For thou art my servant.
My what?
My servant.
My what?
My servant.
Thou art my servant, Jacob and Israel. You see that? Now go back to Revelation 1:1. Now that we have biblically defined, based on the precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, the word of the Lord was as unto a precept unto them. You see that? Go ahead.
The book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 1. The revelation of Hamashiach Yahushua, which the Most High gave unto him, to show unto his servants.
To show unto his servants, read on.
Things which must shortly come to pass.
Things which must shortly come to pass. Now jump to verse 13.
Verse 13.
Right?
And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks.
In the midst of the what?
Of the 7 candlesticks.
That's your menorah right there. And not the 9 candlesticks. That's what Jewish people do. Right? The 7 candlesticks. Read on.
And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man.
One like unto the Son of Man. Read on.
Clothed with a garment down to the foot.
Clothed with the garment down to the foot. Go ahead.
And girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool.
That's the point I want. This is the biblical description of how Yahushua HaMashiach really looked. You understand? And notice that in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, we understand that those 7 candlesticks represented the 7 churches of Asia Minor, right? But I just want to show you the menorah is biblical. We can go into Exodus, the 20th chapter, and show that, or not the 20th chapter, but like 25, 26, and show the menorah as well. But it's something that we had in our holy places, and it's a holy thing. You see what I mean? Just look at it. That ain't your average candle holder. You get what I'm saying? Right? So let's go into the history of this. Let me get Daniel chapter 8. Let me get Daniel chapter 8. We got a lot of history to cover, a lot of prophecy to cover. I want to show you how we're going to show you in the history. What I wanted to aim to do was show you how real this Bible is. This is what I want you to do. I got it written down right here, but look up approximately when the book of Daniel was written. I got it written right here, but I want the class to be interactive, right? So look up when the book of Daniel, according to most scholars and historians, would suggest that the book of Daniel approximately was written. And there's a great reason for the purpose of me asking this question. Go ahead.
It says about 164 BC.
The book of Daniel. What you got?
2nd century BC.
2nd century BC, right? Now, this is years before Christ. When Daniel was alive, what captivity was Daniel in?
Babylonian.
Okay, Babylonian. What else? He was in another one.
Syria.
Right? No, the Persians. Persians and the Medes. Okay. Right? So now, and Daniel, he lived in not the 2nd century, but it was roughly the year 600 to like mid 500s. So back then, like before Christ, it would go like from 10 to 1, if that makes sense. So it'll go like the year 600, 100 years, it'll go to 500. That's, going forward versus now 1 to 10, right? So Daniel was about 600 years before Christ, right? Now, why is that relevant? Daniel was captive dominantly in the Babylonian captivity under who? Was it one or more prominent names? Nebuchadnezzar, right? Nebuchadnezzar, exactly. Nebuchadnezzar and how he came in and ransacked Jerusalem and took his captives. Ezekiel was amongst those brothers as well, right? So let's read Daniel 8, verse 1.
The book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 1.
Uh-huh.
In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel.
Now this is Daniel saying, listen, a vision appeared unto me, right? Why? Someone get Amos 3 and 7. Why? Why a vision appear unto Daniel and of all people? Huh? Let's read it. Amos chapter 3, verse 7 to show. Right? The Bible says, study to show thyself to be approved, a workman needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Go ahead.
The book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 7.
Right.
Surely the Lord God would do nothing.
Right.
But he revealeth.
He what?
He revealeth.
He revealeth. Read on.
He revealeth his secret.
His what?
His secret. Unto his servants, the prophets.
The who?
His servants, the prophets.
What was Daniel?
The prophets.
Right. He was a prophet. You understand? Daniel was a prophet, and we're going to show you that he was absolutely a prophet. This is in the year 600, 500. Between those years, right? This is, put it this way, it's 2,600 years ago. Now, let's read Daniel 8 and 1.
The book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar.
And Daniel was a young brother. Daniel wasn't no, blonde hair, Edomite. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
A vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel. After that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision. And it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace.
Right.
Which is in the province of Elam.
Right.
And I saw in a vision. And I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes.
Right. In this vision, he lifted up his eyes. Go ahead, Lord Christ.
And saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns.
Now, he in his vision, right? You got to focus on this one. In his vision, he saw a ram with 2 horns. Right? In his vision. You ever have like a dream and you can see things, right? Daniel, in his vision, he saw a ram. Go ahead.
Which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high. But one was higher than the other. And the higher came up last.
Right. Go ahead.
Verse 4. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward.
He saw the ram pushing westward and northward. Read on.
And southward.
And southward. Right? Keep going.
So that no beast might stand before him.
So that no beast can stand before it. Read on.
Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand.
Neither was there any that can deliver out of the ram's hand with the 2 horns, with one higher than the other. Read on.
But he did according to his will and became great. Verse 5. And as I was considering.
Right, so this ram is just dominating. It's just from this direction to that direction. What did it say? West, north, and south?
Come.
Right? Read on.
And as I was considering, behold, and he goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth.
Right? While he was looking at this ram, all of a sudden, a he goat. Keep going.
Came from the west on the face of the whole earth.
Came from the west on the face of the whole earth. Read on.
And touched not the ground.
And touched not the ground. Read on.
And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes.
And this goat that he saw in his vision had a notable horn. Read on.
And he came to the ram that had 2 horns.
And he came to the ram that had 2 horns.
Which I had seen standing before the river.
Right?
And ran unto him in the fury of his power.
Who ran to who?
The goat ran into the ram.
Who ran into who? It was the goat that ran into the ram, right? Go ahead, keep going.
Verse 7. And I saw him come close into the ram. And he was moved with shoulder against him.
Right.
And smote the ram. And break his 2 horns.
And now in this vision, Daniel said, well, I was considering. He's trying to figure out what this ram represent. Because he know it represents something. Because Daniel was a prophet. You get my point? This wasn't one of them silly dreams you have. This is a vision from the Lord. And he knew it. And he was considering. Then he saw a goat. with a notable horn between his eyes, came and bullied the ram with two horns, one higher than the other. This is significant. And this is when people say the Bible isn't real, it's because they know nothing. They know absolutely nothing. They don't know the first thing about life. They don't know the first thing about the Bible to speak on it. You get my point? God ain't real. Yeah, he gonna show you how real he is. He gonna show how real you not in a minute. That's God, right? He showed them Egyptians up, didn't he? Right? So now, what y'all think? What is the ram? What is the horn? What does that represent? Let's go to Daniel 8 and 20.
The book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 20.
Right?
The ram which thou sawest.
It's the Lord breaking down to Daniel what he saw. Read on.
The ram which thou sawest, having two horns, are the kings of Media and Persia.
Right, it's the empire of the Persians and the Medes. It was known as the Medo-Persian Empire, right? And when one horn was higher than the other, that one represented the Medes, the higher horn represented the Persians because they dominated the Medo-Persian Empire. You get my point? Who are your modern day Persians? Go ahead and look up when Persia got his name changed, Aitazan. When did Persia get his name changed? Who are your Persians? When you read about the Persians and Xerxes and Darius, your Dariuses, your Cyruses, who should you envision? Who should you envision? Go ahead. Iranians, right? But when did they get their name changed? Oh, I need someone to read it. Pass it to that brother to read it. Who got it? Aitazan? Hold on the mic.
It says March 21st, 1935.
March 21st, 1935, what?
Substituted Iran for Persia.
So your modern day Iranians.
Khan.
Your Persians. Go ahead, give it back to Super Latazat. The water. Right? So who are the Persians? When you read about the Persian Latazat, who should you envision? Iranians. You get my point? They changed in 1935. In 1934, that was Persia. You get my point? And if you look at those old pictures of like Cyrus the Great, and it looked like what's dude's name, man? Ah, man.
Hussein?
Not Saddam Hussein. I think he's Afghanistan or Afghan. I forget homeboy name. In Iran. Needless to say, you know who Persia is. All right, so let's read Daniel 8 and 20 again.
Book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 20.
Uh-huh.
The ram which thou sawest.
The ram which thou sawest.
Having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia.
Uh-huh.
And the rough goat is the king of Grecia.
And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. Now, the reason why he saw that goat pushing west, south, and north, when you look at the geography and the history of the dominance of the Persian Empire, geographically, that's what they dominated. And then the goat, the rough goat, came from the west, right? Read on. And the rough goat is
the king of Grecia.
And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. Read on.
And the horn that is between his eyes is the first king.
Right. The goat is Greece. It's the Greek Empire. And the great horn between that rough goat's eyes was the first king. Now, who was the first king? Let's go to 1 Maccabees, chapter 1. Now, why is this important? It's important because in the mid 500s, when Daniel received this vision, the kingdom of Greece was not looked at as being next, as the ultimate empire. This is a prophecy of God, and it came to pass. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1.
Book of 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes. That he reigned.
He smit Darius, the king of the Persians and the Medes. That was the rough goat defeating that ram, because Persia was dominating all foreigners. Persia, the kingdom of the Medes and the Medo-Persian Empire, had who in slavery? Israel. You got Israel in slavery. You on top. Who else? Who else? You get my point? You got us as slaves. You on top. Am I lying? Babylonians, they was on top when they had us in slavery. The Egyptians, they was on top. But keep reading. And if for those who want to look it up, it was the Battle of Issus in the year 330 BC, where Alexander killed Darius III. Go ahead.
And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim,
keep going,
had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes.
Right, keep going.
That he reigned in his stead.
Read on.
The first over Greece.
The first over Greece. Go back to Daniel 8 and 21.
Book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 21.
This happened 300 years after this vision came. What in the world was Daniel doing seeing a ram and a goat, and what was the significance? It's because God was showing them a shift in powers, the power structure. And it's also to show a little bit more than that, and I ain't gonna give that away just yet. Right? Go ahead. 21.
The book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king.
Right. This is what I want you to do. That's what I want you to do. Go to let me see. What verse you are right now?
8 and 21. Going to 22.
It's an apocrypha. Oh, go to Proverbs 1 and 6. Oh no. Ecclesiastes 8 and 1. Whoa. Whoa, yep. It's another one, but it's an apocrypha. That I want to get. Go ahead.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 8, verse 1.
Read.
Who is as the wise man?
Who is as the wise man? Read on.
And who knoweth the interpretation of a thing?
The interpretation of a thing. That's what you're learning. You learning the interpretation, right? So what did the ram with the two horns represent, Itazan? What did the ram represent with the two horns? Go ahead. Medes. The Medes, right? Go to verse 21 again. Daniel 8 and 21. Who can show? Because we gotta be able to go into these things, right?
The book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 21. Well, verse 20.
Go ahead.
The ram which thou sawest having two horns.
The ram which thou sawest have two horns, read on.
Are the kings of Media and Persia.
Are the kings of Media and Persia. Read on.
Verse 21. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia.
And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. Read on.
And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king.
And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now, who is that first king? Itazan. Who's that first king? Go back to First Maccabees.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1.
I'm showing you, this is 300 years before Daniel's time, Itazan. You see what I'm saying? First Maccabees 1:1. Tell me who the first king of Greece was. Go ahead.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1.
Go ahead, say it. No. No, not Darius. Darius was the king of who? Who was Darius the king of, Itazam? The kings of the Persians and the Medes, the Medo-Persian Empire, right? Now, who was the first king of Greece? First Maccabees, let's read it, Itazam.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1.
Go ahead.
And it happened. After that, Alexander.
Who?
Alexander.
One more time.
Alexander,
read on.
son of Philip,
Read on.
the Macedonian,
Uh-huh.
who came out of the land of Chittim.
Now, who was the first king of Greece? Alec, give him a hand, right? Alexander. Now, what you learn about Alexander the Great in school? What you learn about Alexander the Great in school? I just gave it to you. Alexander the Great. What'd you learn? Did they teach about it anymore or what? Alexander the Great, right? He was this great conqueror, which he was technically, right? He was known for, if you go back into Daniel, how it says in Daniel 8, how it says how the goat didn't touch the ground, is because how swiftly he dominated all the surrounding nations. How quick he did it. He did it in a matter of, from the year, he did it in less than, I want to say 12 years. He did it quick. He was real smart. He had a lot of military wit, knowledge, because of his father, don't leave me, Philip of Macedon II, right? Who started the League of Corinth. But, that's another breakdown. But go ahead and he was a Macedonian. And he introduced the Macedonian flanks. You ever seen like them old war movies? And they all got them long poles with the spears at the tips? That was like advanced technology back then. So they was introducing that to, the Babylon or the Persian, the Medes. They didn't have nothing against it. They didn't have no strategy against conquering that, so they lost. Right? Where we at?
First Maccabees 1 and 2.
Okay, yep. Let's read First Maccabees 1 and 2.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 2.
Uh-huh.
And made many wars, and won many strongholds.
Who? Alexander, right? Read on.
And slew the kings of the earth.
Read on.
And went through to the ends of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And took spoils of many nations.
What does that mean? When he took spoils of many nations, what did he do? What does that mean? Go ahead, Alazar.
Basically, he got like all the riches of it.
He got all the goods. He spoiled those nations. He would first introduce himself to them nations, and if they was either willing to surrender or fight, he was gonna have his way, and he was gonna take all your goods. You ever heard of the Library of Alexandria? Right, and that library that he has set up under his rule is like all the historical artifacts and records of the nations he conquered. Right? Keep going. Including us.
And took spoils of many nations, in so much that the earth was quiet before him.
The earth was quiet. Nobody was on his man level. Go ahead.
Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up.
What book, chapter, and verse you at?
First Maccabees 1 and 3.
Okay, go ahead.
Verse 4. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. And after these things, he fell sick.
Right.
And perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them.
Right.
While he was yet alive.
Keep going.
Verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years.
How long did he reign?
12 years.
He died at a young age. Right? Keep going.
Reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule everyone in his place.
Keep going.
Verse 9. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves.
Right.
So did their sons after them many years.
Mm-hmm.
And evils were multiplied in the earth.
What was multiplied in the earth?
Evils.
From the rule of Alexander?
Evils were multiplied in the earth.
From the rule of the Greeks?
Evils were multiplied in the earth.
Why were evils multiplied in earth? Get Songs of Solomon. Oh no, the Songs of the Three Holy Children. In the Apocrypha, chapter 3, verse 9. Song of the Three Holy Children, chapter 3, verse 9. Evils were multiplied in the earth. Once Esau got into power, who is Esau? Who can tell me who Esau is? So-called white man, right? So-called European Caucasian, right? Get what I asked for. Song of the Three Holy Children, 3 and 9. Or verse 9.
The book of the Song of the Three Holy Children, verse 9, chapter 1, verse 9. And thou didst deliver us into the hands of lawless enemies, most hateful forsakers of God.
Most hateful forsakers of God. Read on.
And to an unjust king.
Unto an unjust king.
And the most wicked.
And the most what?
And the most wicked.
And the most wicked.
In all the world.
In all the world. That's what Esau is. The most wicked in all the world. Now, from there, go to Job 9 and 24. This is when, you know, this scripture right here is Alexander. It's Alexander. Once you go into the history of it, why black people don't know who they are, it begins with Alexander. And I'll explain why.
The book of Job, chapter 9, verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked.
The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Read on.
He covereth the faces of the judges thereof.
He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. What does that mean? What does that mean? He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. Go ahead. Yeah.
Basically, he painted all our pictures. He turned them to himself. Mm-hmm. He made them white boys.
Exactly, right? All the black and brown images in our holy places and our records, he whitewashed them. You ever look at all those old, watch like an old documentary, and they'll have like all the old, you can tell that there was black people, but they knocked the noses off. You ever notice why they do that? Because they don't want you to know that was us. They don't want you to know that King James was black. King Henry VIII was black. A lot of kings and queens and stuff like that. We don't practice queens, but when we ruled in certain areas, we did have that type of power structure. And they whitewashed all the images. They whitewashed all the images, just like they do today. You let 100 years go by, Michael Jordan is going to be white. It's like it. Go to First Maccabees. Where you at? 1 and 10? Yeah, read verse 10.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 10. Mm-hmm. And there came out of them a wicked root.
And there came out of them. Now, what happened was when Alexander died, since he didn't have any children or any legitimate son to pass his kingdom down to, as was custom of the Greeks, what he did was he split it up amongst his 4 higher-ranking generals. And when we go back to Daniel 8 and 21, go back to Daniel 8 and 21. Now, this is Daniel seeing this 300 years before Alexander was ever born. And it's explained in great detail. So when people talk about how the Bible was man written, they don't know anything. They don't know nothing. Right? Go ahead.
The book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 21.
Read.
And the rough goat.
And the rough goat.
Is the king of Grecia.
Is the king of Grecia.
And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king.
Mm-hmm. Who was the first king of Greece? Who? Get him in the hand, right? Alexander, right? Keep going.
Verse 22. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it.
Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it. For what? The kingdom of Greece. Right? Read on.
4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power.
Right. 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. The 4 generals you had that stood up for Alexander was Lysimachus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. Those are his 4 generals, and they had something was historically recognized as the Diadochi Wars, which is a Latin term for War of the Generals. They got greedy. They fought over like Egypt, Syria, Greece. But the more prominent men or generals was Seleucus and Ptolemy. The reason why those two, because they dominate the other generals and the land masses. And Seleucus is where comes our next notable figure we have to go into to understand the Feast of Dedication. All this is important history and understanding what we're doing here tonight. Why in John chapter 10, verse 22, Christ kept the Feast of Dedication. What did he know that we don't? So let's go to, actually keep reading.
Verse 22, now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance.
Now this is where the Feast of Dedication comes into play. A king of fierce countenance, go ahead.
And understanding dark sentences,
keep going,
shall stand up.
Right? This is 300 years. This is Daniel receiving this in the year 530, give or take. Right? The kingdom of the Greeks was like, Alexander was like 323. Then all the wars going on trickle down to this man where it says, and in the latter time of their kingdom, a king of fierce countenance. I want you to focus on, or if you have a highlighter, highlight a king of fierce countenance. We're going to break down who that is, right? This is around the year like 167 BC. This is before Christ. Everything that we're reading about is before Christ. Now keep going.
And understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty.
This is the king of fierce countenance. What does that mean? Fierce countenance. King of fierce countenance. Go ahead, if you know it.
Folks gonna be scared of him.
People gonna be scared of him. Look up at, okay, I don't want to give it away. Let's go to First Maccabees. Chapter 1, verse 10.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root.
There came out of them. First go to 9 again, just to recap.
Book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 9.
This is Black history. We got to get out of our mind, like imagining white people. Well, Antiochus and the Greeks, those white people. But what you're going to read about, that was us, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. Right? Go ahead.
And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth.
Go ahead.
And there came out of them a wicked root.
There came out of them a wicked root.
Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes.
Now, if you can see that, if you have Apocrypha, Google him. Google him. Google Antiochus Epiphanes, surnamed Epiphanes, and Google the 4th. That's who this is. It was a line of, really it's Antiochus, but Antiochus is sufficient. Antiochus Epiphanes, the 4th. Look up a picture of him if y'all can, and just pass it around, or just show brothers and sisters. This dude, right? King of fierce countenance. Who got it? You ever watch them old slave movies like who's seen 12 Years a Slave? Remember that dude? He played an X-Men, right? Remember how he looked when he was whipping him and he was trying to run from him, like, I didn't do nothing. You see the look on his face, like he channeled a slave, like he had a fierce countenance, right? And he was tripping. But let's look. Who got a picture of him? You got itis on? It's like a coin. Should be like a coin with like his likeness on it, a statue of his face or a bust. Antiochus the 4th. Let me see. I just want to give context on what we looking like. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, just show brothers and sisters. Show the brothers, show the sisters. That's who we talking about. We had to go into the empire of the Greeks. You show the sisters? Right? That's Antiochus. That's who we're gonna be talking about. Now let's go to ugly, ain't he? Go to First Maccabees 1 and 11. So like you.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 11.
Right? He was an evil dude. He got a lot of history behind him. For example, how it says surname Epiphanes. I'll show you how he felt about himself. He changed his name to Epiphanes, which means God incarnate. That's how he felt about himself. He felt like he was God. I'm going to show you in his actions, that's why he felt how he felt. Let's get First Maccabees 1 and 11.
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen.
Right. So during this time, the Greeks enter into Israel. They dominated everybody, the Persians, the Medes, the Babylonians, the Syrians, etc. And then they come across Egypt, and then they come across Israel. And some men was like, we ain't even about to put up a fight. They just wanted to not be hurt. So read verse 11 again.
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us.
Let us make a covenant with the Greeks. Read on.
For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
Right, keep going.
So this device pleased them well.
Now that is to show that there were sellouts in Israel like today who were willing to discontinue from their heritage to serve the Greeks. Right, and I'll explain that going forward. Now go to verse 21.
Verse 21. And entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar.
Now, when the Greeks came into Israel, they ransacked our holy places. They went into our sanctuary, our altars. And what did they do? No, read verse 20.
Verse 20. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt. He returned again in the 143rd year.
In the 143rd year, read on.
And went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude.
He brought a Greek army with him to go against us, Israel. Read on.
And entered proudly into the sanctuary.
And he entered how?
Proudly.
What was Antiochus?
Proud.
He was proud. Ooh, what that sound like? Go to Obadiah. Obadiah. Hold on. Obadiah. You know what I want. 1 and 3. Let me see. You're talking about Antiochus.
The book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 3. The pride.
Ooh, the what?
The pride.
The pride
of thine heart have deceived thee.
You see that, right? That's the nature of Esau. That's what the line of Antiochus, that's where he comes from. He's an Edomite, right? Go back to Maccabees.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 20. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt. He returned again in the 143rd year and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude and entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar.
What'd he do?
And took away the golden altar.
Took away the golden altar.
And the candlestick of light.
And the candlestick of light. We read, you read Revelation 1 and 7. I seen one like it to the Son of Man in the midst of the golden 7 candlesticks. That's the menorah, right? Go ahead.
And the candlestick of light and all the vessels thereof.
And all our holy things. Read on.
And the table of the showbread.
The table of the showbread.
And the pouring vessels. And the vials. And the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple.
Imagine in school, it's a golden table. Golden cups. That ain't gold, but I wish it was. Golden cups, golden ornaments, gold. And we minding our business one day, and then the Greeks just ransack it. They take everything out the school. That's what you want to envision. Right? And in the process of that, in the process of them stealing all of our holy things, something else happens. Keep going.
And the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold,
right?
And the precious vessels.
And the precious vessels, read on.
And he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre.
Made a what?
A great massacre.
He made a great massacre. Read on.
And spoken very proudly.
And he spoke very proudly. When he went back to the Greeks, we dominated those Israelites. I'm going to read to you how. Read on. Massacred. Right? Look up the word massacre. Itazam or Natazat. Look up the word massacre. What is a massacre? A massacre. Let me know when you got it. Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Massacre.
The
Uh-huh.
The act or an instance of killing
The act or instance of killing
a number of usual helpless or unresisting human beings
keep going.
under circumstances of atrocity.
Under circumstances of atrocity. What's an atrocity? Like an atrocity? That's what you was about to say.
I would say, like a terrible situation.
Okay, I'll take that. Go ahead, I just know. Go ahead, sis. Something devastating. Give her a hand. Give her puppy a hand too. He in class. Scooby Doo. Go ahead. I know. Huh?
The definition of atrocity: a shockingly bad or atrocious act, object, or situation.
You hear that, right? That makes sense. Go ahead and Latazah.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 25. Therefore, there was great mourning in Israel.
There was great mourning in Israel. Read on.
in every place where they were,
In every place we were. Read on.
so that the princes and elders mourned.
Right?
The virgins and young men were made feeble,
Right?
and the beauty of women was changed.
Uh-huh.
Every bridegroom took up lamentation,
Right. Keep going.
and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaven.
Everybody, this was a state of lamentation. You remember, you know that scripture where it says, Judah mourneth in the gates thereof language. This is the beginning of it. This is the part of the gates languishing, because remember, our leaders began to sell out to the Greeks. You see that? So every time you celebrate Christmas, every time you want to join the Greek fraternities, you got to remember this here. You got to remember when the Greeks massacred, led by Antiochus, the king of fierce countenance in Daniel the 8th chapter, led a massacre against the Israelites. Now, go to verse 41, same chapter, book, and verse. 41.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
Now, this is what Antiochus wants. He wants everybody to be one people. Now, what does he have in mind when he says that? Keep in mind, he's a Greek. What does he mean by that? He wants everybody to be one people. All right, Tazan. They want us to be like them. There's a term for it. I say it all the time. H. Mm-hmm. It rhymes with Hellenization. Hellenization. Give me a hand. Look up the word Hellenization. Yeah, that is a word. Hellenization. Who has a Zonovans? I don't know if I brought mine. No. Just read it. It should be Tawab. Merriam-Webster. Let me check. Yeah, Merriam-Webster definition of Hellenization. That is the what Alexander started and what Antiochus wanted to finish. The Hellenization of not only us, but everyone. Hellenization. To become Greek. Or that's being Hellenist. Hellenist, when you look up the Greeks, the Greeks in like the book of Galatians or in the New Testament where it talks about Greeks, but in the context it's talking about Israelites, we were known as Hellenists. Hellenists, when you look up the word Hellenist, it's Greek-speaking Jews. Jews who made Greek their language and practice Greek customs and ideas. It's a Hellenist, right? Not Greek by birth, but they had the Greek beat into them and the Israelite beat out of them. Remember that July 4th. Go to 1 Maccabees 1 and 41.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 41.
Go ahead.
Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
Right, and what else?
And everyone should leave his laws.
And everyone should leave his laws.
So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
Right? Meaning Antiochus went to the Greeks, he went to their council, and he said, I want all these Israelites to leave their laws and be Greek. Right? Read on.
Yeah. Many also of the Israelites consented to his religion.
They consented to the religion, meaning they didn't even put up a fight. A lot of Israelites didn't put up a fight with Antiochus because he was a fierce man, and they heard of the horrible things that he did to other nations and other people and their families and their children and their property and livestock. Keep going.
Consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols.
And they sacrificed unto idols.
And profaned the Sabbath.
And profaned the Sabbath.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, and that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
Right.
And forbid burnt offerings.
We weren't allowed to have burnt offerings. That's something big in Israel. This is before Christ. We don't do that now. Right? Read on.
And sacrifice.
And sacrifice.
And drink offerings.
Drink
in
offerings.
the temple.
Everything that we deemed our culture and what made us holy and separate from the other nations, he didn't want us to do it. Meaning, well, actually, I'll let it go by itself. Keep going.
And that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days. And pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
So that's like, imagine them bringing in the Greeks bringing in swine's flesh on this podium, removing, knock everything off our table and sacrifice the swine's flesh, kill a pig blood dripping everywhere, right? Just defiling the temple, the holy place of the Most High, right? Read on.
That they should also leave their children uncircumcised.
And then he didn't want us to circumcise our children. They wanted us to be Greek. Read on.
And make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
Right.
To the end they might.
Why do they want us? What is profanation? With all manner of uncleanness and profanation. Why? Why did Esau want us to do that? Go to Hebrews 12:16. Because I put it to you like this: in history, the Babylonians didn't conform us to being Babylonian. The Medes or the Persians, same thing. But when it came to the Greeks, they wanted us to be Greek. Hebrews 12:6.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 16.
Lest
there be any fornicator, or profane,
or what?
Or profane,
what?
Or profane.
Get the
person.
definition, Itazan. Profane. As who?
As Esau.
As who?
As Esau.
Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau. What was Antiochus or Antiochus Epiphanes IV? He was Esau. He was an Edomite. Go ahead. The definition of profane.
The definition of profane in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary.
Go back to Maccabees.
To treat something sacred with abuse.
To treat something sacred with abuse. Right? Come on now. Go ahead.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 49.
You got more?
It just says to treat something sacred with abuse, irreverence, or contempt, to debase by a wrong, unworthy, or vulgar use.
You hear that, right? Keep going. Maccabees.
Book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 49. To the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances.
To the end that we might forget the law. So here it is. The Most High delivered the children of Israel from the hands of the Egyptians from oppression and hardcore bondage and slavery. And the Most High told Moses to tell us to teach our children to 1,000 generations. And the Greeks said, no, unlearn all of that and be Greek. Serve Zeus. You ever heard of Greek mythology? Zeus. What's some other Greek? Hades. Poseidon. That's what they wanted you to follow and believe in and worship. See? Go ahead.
To the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die.
Right. Now, Antiochus said, anyone that doesn't agree to not circumcise their children, to not eat pork, you get my point? To not eat things forbidden by the Most High. If you decide to worship your God, I'm going to kill you. That's what he said. So Israelites was in a situation of, damn, okay, circumcise my son, but then I can die behind it. And you had Israelites who said, to hell with what he talking about. I'm gonna serve the Lord. And I'll bring up those notable brothers and sisters as well. But you also had traitors, as we read in verse 11. So now let's go to verse 54.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 54.
Uh-huh.
Now the 15th day of the month, Caslo, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side.
Right.
And burnt incense at the doors of their houses.
And burnt incense at the doors of their houses. Read on.
And in the streets.
And
when they had rent in pieces the books of the law, which they found.
So they went into our holy places and they ripped all of our holy scrolls, Bible, or really it was, the Old Testament, but the scriptures. They went in there, ripped them all up, burned them all up, right? Read on.
They burnt them with fire.
Right.
And wheresoever was found with any the book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death.
Right. Keep going.
Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month.
They did that every month. Right. Keep going.
To as many as were found in the cities. Now the 5 and 20th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of the Most High. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women,
right,
that had caused their children to be circumcised,
right,
and they hanged the infants about their necks,
right,
and rifled their houses and slew them that had circumcised them,
right.
Howbeit, many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing.
Right. What verse you at?
63.
Keep going.
Wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died.
Right. Now, who here has ever heard of Josephus? A man by the name of Josephus. Josephus. When you get into your historical studies of the Bible, you learn about a man by the name of Josephus. He was sorry. Come on.
Yeah, you said right there.
Okay, come on.
Go ahead.
Josephus was a first century historian. So I want to look at something, the antiquities of the Jews, the history of what we just read in a little bit more detail, the horrific things that Antiochus, you're going to read the highlighted section on page, I think, 324. You're going to look at how evil and disgusting the Greeks were to the Israelites when they defiled our temple.
Works of Josephus, the Antiquities of the Jews, page 324.
Right.
Citizens suffered many and sore calamities.
Right. Citizens suffered many and sore calamities. Read on.
And when the king had built an idol altar upon God's altar, he slew swine upon it. Read on. And so offered a sacrifice neither according to the law, nor the Jewish religious worship in that country. He also compelled them to forsake the worship which they paid their own God, and to adore those whom he took to be gods, and made them build temples and raise idol altars in every city and village, and offered swine upon them every day. He also commanded them not to circumcise their sons, and threatened to punish any that should be found to have transgressed his injunction.
Keep going.
He also appointed overseers who should compel them to do what he commanded.
What do those overseers sound like? Think about slavery. Remember taskmasters? Someone keeping guard and making sure that they're not serving the Most High. That's what they wanted. Go ahead.
And indeed, many Jews there were who complied with the king's commands, either voluntarily or out of fear of the penalty that was denounced. But the best men and those of the noblest souls did not regard him.
Right. That's what I read that one more time.
But the best men and those of the noblest souls.
And those of the noblest souls. What does it mean to be noble, Aitazan? You can look it up. The noblest souls, read it again.
But the best men and those of the noblest souls did not regard him.
Right.
but did pay greater respect to the customs of their country than concern as to the punishment which he threatened to the disobedient.
So you have brothers who sold out and were willing to discontinue from their heritage, as I mentioned earlier, and be Greek willingly, right? But then you have brothers who are noble and courageous and righteous, who had the spirit of the Most High, who were not willing to let go of the traditions and customs of being an Israelite. You understand? So who are those brothers? Who was noble? Go to the definition, noble.
The definition of noble in the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Possessing outstanding qualities.
Possessing outstanding qualities. We're going to read about someone who possessed outstanding qualities. Read on.
Of high birth or exalted rank.
Okay. That's it on that. Now get 2 Maccabees 2 and 1. Or 1 Maccabees 2 and 1. Did you catch where they used to hang our infants from the light poles? That's what they used to do. That was when they came and conquered the Israelites. Go back to 1 Maccabees 1 and 61. 1 and 61.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 61.
Uh-huh.
And they hang the infants.
What they do?
And they hang the infants about their necks and rifled their houses.
Right.
And slew them that had circumcised them.
Right.
Howbeit many.
That's what Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes charged the Greeks to do. The Greeks under him. You see that? It was a terrible day in Israel. And when I say day, I'm not talking about one day. This was going on for years, where it was against the law of the Greeks to be an Israelite. Go ahead.
Howbeit, many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed themselves not to eat any unclean thing.
Now, go to chapter 2, verse 1.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 1.
Right.
In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Jorib from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin.
Now, when you study about the Feast of Dedication and Hanukkah, the key names are going to be Antiochus Epiphanes, Alexander, the Greeks, and these names here. Mattathias, Salakia, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Jorib. Go ahead.
From Jerusalem and dwelt in Modin.
Verse
2. And he had 5 sons.
And he had 5 sons.
Joannan called Cadus, Simon called Thesai, Judas, who is called Maccabeus, Eleazar called Abraham, and Jonathan, whose surname was Aphas.
Keep going.
And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem.
Right. What was the blasphemies that he saw? What was the blasphemies that Mattathias saw? Go ahead. Go ahead. Babies being hung by their necks. Our babies. What else? That's a big one. Sacrificing swine. Like, go to Leviticus 11 and 7. Like, we are holy people. We're a people with class. Right? Let me show you what the Most High said about swine's flesh. Not only are you not supposed to eat it, you're not supposed to touch a dead pig's carcass. That's how holy the children of Israel are supposed to be unto the Lord, their power. So go ahead and read Leviticus 11 and 7, let alone sacrifice it. Like the Greeks sacrificed on our altars as well, right? But then they made you sacrifice on your altar. They wanted to break you. That's what the Greeks did, right? Go ahead.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 11, verse 7. And the swine, though he divide the hoof.
And the swine, though he divide the hoof. Read on.
And be cloven-footed.
Read on.
Yet he cheweth not the cud.
Meaning he chew not the cud. His diet is not vegetation. Read on.
He is unclean to you.
He is unclean to you. Go ahead.
Of their flesh.
Of their what?
Of their flesh.
Of their flesh.
Shall ye not eat.
Keep going.
And their carcass.
And their what?
And their carcass.
What's a carcass? Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. A little bit more specific. Okay. Go ahead. A dead pig. It's carcass. Right? Go ahead.
And their carcass shall ye not touch. They are unclean to you.
Right. Now, imagine Israelites who know this, who went to the Sabbath service every Sabbath and studied the law, had to grab a pig and slice its throat on the holy places. So Mattathias saw that. Now we're picking it up at verse 6. Those were the blasphemies he saw.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 6. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, woe is me. Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city and to dwell there when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers.
Right, keep going.
Her temple is become as a man without glory.
Keep going.
Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity.
Right. What does that mean? Our glorious vessels were carried away into captivity. Remember, they came in and ransacked. Remember, I said, imagine like if the Greeks came into this school and took everything, ransacked everything, and took it as their own, as spoils of war. Our menorah, our altars, right? Things we deemed holy. Keep going.
Verse
showbread.
Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets.
Our infants were slain in the streets.
Her young men with the sword of the enemy.
Our young man with the sword of the enemy.
What nation have not had a part in her kingdom?
Right.
And gotten of her spoils?
Keep going.
All her ornaments are taken away.
All our ornaments were taken away.
Of a free woman, she has become a bond slave.
Now, this is where we begin to talk about what the Feast of Dedication is about. Right? So let's go to First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 27. Jump to verse 27.
Verse 20.
So Mattathias saw the oppression of the Israelites, and he saw the sellouts as well. And he decided to take a stand in righteousness. Let's see what he said. First Maccabees 2 and 27.
The book of First Maccabees chapter 2, verse 27. And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying,
what did Mattathias say?
Whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me.
Right.
So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city.
Why did they have to leave and flee to the mountains? You can imagine how bad it was. How much death was in the streets of Israel, Jerusalem. Right? Now, jump to verse 31.
Verse 31. Now, when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number.
Now, read verse 31 where it says the king's servants. Who is the king and who are the servants in that verse, in its proper context? That's talking about Antiochus and the Greeks. Meaning the Greeks got ear of Mattathias forming an alliance of brothers, if you will, brothers who were not going to submit to the will of the Greeks, and they left, and they put Antiochus on notice. Keep going.
Now, when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number.
Go ahead.
And having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day. And they said unto them, let that which ye have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king.
Right. Because you had, not only did Mattathias and noblemen leave into the wilderness, but you also had other groups of brothers who fled Greek persecution. Go ahead.
Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live. But they said, we will not come forth. Neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day.
Keep going.
So then they gave them the battle with all speed.
So the Greeks, these group of brothers, the Greeks attacked on the Sabbath day. Read on.
Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them.
If you could emphasize on the Sabbath day for the people, because remember what people don't believe about the Sabbath day, right?
Right,
Can you explain to the brothers and sisters about that?
How
concrete that is.
Right. This is, okay, you have brothers and sisters who believe that you cannot, live on the Sabbath pretty much. You got to eat, turkey sandwiches and cereal. You got to suffer on the Sabbath. That's what they want you to do. The spirit of being in the truth is not to suffer on the Sabbath. That's not the spirit of the Sabbath day, right? And I'll explain that. Keep going.
They pursued after them a great number, Salakia.
34.
Verse 34. But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day.
Right. What does that mean? We're not going to fight you on the Sabbath because it's the Sabbath, and that's wrong. Those brothers, these group of brothers, should have fought, even though it's the Sabbath day. And you're going to read the outcome of these brothers who didn't understand the Sabbath, the true meaning of keeping the Sabbath, their fate. Keep going.
Can I go into a little bit?
Can
you read that again now, if you don't mind?
The book of
This is heavy, right? So we talk about, like, that's why it's so important. Get it at the top of one real quick for the amazing class. We talk about how heavy it is all the time, how it's important for you to come into the ISUPK, right? It's so important for you to come into the ISUPK. Why? Because we are the home of the truth, right?
Right.
This is the place where you get a proper breakdown on how to serve the Sabbath day, how you deal with the Sabbath day. These cats were fake Israelites.
Right.
Y'all understand that, right? They were Christian. And when you're Christian, you do things like don't obey God. Y'all understand, right? So instead of going to war, you read that right there if you could.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 34.
Uh-huh.
But they said, we will not come forth.
We will what?
We will not come forth.
Right. So now the Greeks, they made had a council, right? And said, we're going to attack these Israelites. We're going to attack these cats, right? And so when they found out, go ahead, the Israelite brothers, right? Go ahead.
We will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day.
They said they wasn't about to, they said they wasn't about to fight on the Sabbath day. So meaning these Greeks knew that they believed this. You understand, right? They knew that they believed this. And they knew on this day they could take advantage of that because they don't understand the Bible. Y'all understand, right? If you don't understand the Bible, you will die. And that's what happened to these cats right here. Instead of going to war, instead of fighting on the Sabbath day, they decided to do what? Nothing. Just like a fake Israelites would teach you. That teacher do nothing on the Sabbath day, right? They told you to what? You can't flush the toilet?
Can't turn the light on.
Can't turn the light on. Can't brush your teeth. Can't have sex with your woman. What?
Hot water.
You can't use hot water?
Right. Yeah,
right. You can't do it. Yeah. You can't do anything because they believe the Bible like a white Jewish man. You understand? That is not the spirit of the Bible. And we can pull two precepts. Let me get two precepts for that, right? Let me get what Christ said.
2 and 24.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Is it 2 and 24? Con. Is it Mark, right? Give me that one in Mark. Keep reading though.
Con.
Now I'm gonna get it right back to you, that one.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 35.
Go ahead.
So then they gave them the battle with all speed.
They gave them the battle with what?
With all speed.
Meaning what? They went to go kill them. They gave them the business. Y'all understand that, right?
Right.
That's what they did. They went to go give them the business, and now they're dead. Right? Go ahead.
Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them.
Howbeit they answered them not, neither they even pick up a rock and throw it at their enemies. That's Christian. I'm gonna tell you a story. Remember the story about that cat that went into that church, right? That cat that came in, Dylan Roof went into a church and killed 9 members of a Christian church in South Carolina, right? He killed 9 people. And not out of those 9 people, when you come to our door, you get pat down, you get checked because we don't want you to die. It's not about us dying. We don't want to kill you, right? So they allowed this man to come in there and have a service, have a Bible study with him without patting him down. And he killed 9 people because of it. It is against the Bible to not defend yourself. Y'all understand? You have to defend your life. That's in the Bible. They did not defend themselves, just like these brothers didn't defend themselves, right? So now that makes them all Christian. That makes them a people that don't understand what the Bible says. Keep going.
Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid.
Go ahead.
But said, let us die. Let us die.
Let us what?
Let us die.
Go ahead.
All in our innocency.
In what?
In our innocency.
In our innocence. And what did he say? Innocence?
Innocency.
Innocency, right? Go ahead.
Heaven and earth shall testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully.
Go ahead.
So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and children.
You understand that, right? So because of the so-called Sabbath day, the Sabbath day that they don't understand, they laid back and let these white people come kill them and their children and their wives. You understand? That's why it's important to know where you're at. That's why it's important to come in here. You understand? Listen, this is not it's not a warning, right? I don't know. This we done said it 1,000 times, right? We didn't tell you where the home of the truth is. We didn't tell you where the original truth is. The Command Journey, 1 West, 120. We didn't said that forever because your life depends on it. People die, right? People die. And if you don't want to end up like them, then you will listen to the priests and prophets of God. But if not, then you end up like the cats who died on the Sabbath day, not defending themselves, right? And dying with their women and children, right? Keep going.
So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and children.
Go ahead.
And their cattle to the number of 1,000 people.
To the number of what?
1,000 people.
Right. So now, Dr. you want to go into the part where Mattathias came, right?
Kind of one kind.
If I get one more precept before that, give me that one in Mark, right?
Mark
with Christ.
24.
This is the Sabbath day, right? Give me the part where he's walking through the field, picking the corn and all
23.
that.
Mark 23.
How many of y'all know what how to celebrate the Sabbath? I know half of y'all don't. People call me all the time. How you do this? Can I do this on the Sabbath? Am I allowed to do this on the Sabbath? Yes, you can do anything you want on the Sabbath day. It's your day. Y'all understand? You can do anything you please to do on that day. What you can't do is you cannot, if you own a business, you cannot make someone else work. You cannot make an Israelite work on that day because that's the day the Lord gave them off. Y'all understand? Keep going.
The book of Mark, chapter 2, verse 23. And it came to pass that he went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day.
Right, he went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day. We're talking about Jesus Christ, right? Yahushua Mashiach. Go ahead.
And his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of corn. And the Pharisees said unto him,
mind you, the Pharisees are fake Christian leaders who do not understand the Bible, right? So they went into Christ and asked him a question. Mind you, they're always trying to what? Confound Christ, basically cut Christ. They're trying to show that they know more about the Bible than he does. But of course, he's Christ. He knows more about the Bible, and he's about to school them right now, right? Go ahead.
And the Pharisees said unto him, Behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful?
Why do they do on the Sabbath day, which is not lawful? He's saying going through the field and picking corn is unlawful. You can't do that. That's, you're working with your hands, right? Go ahead.
And he said unto them, Have ye never read what David did when he had need and was in hunger? He and they that were with him, how he went into the house of the Most High in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, and did eat the showbread.
These are Levite priests, right? Levite priests that gave David showbread. Showbread is what we put on the table on the Sabbath day, right? That's only strictly for the priests, right? So now, the priest that day gave David the showbread because David was hungry, so hungry that he was going to die, right? Go ahead.
And did eat the showbread, which is not lawful to eat, but for the priest, and gave also to them which were with him. And he said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man.
Sabbath was made for who?
Was made for man.
The Sabbath was made for who? Was
made for man.
Go ahead.
And not man for the Sabbath.
That's Christ. That's Christ's words. Y'all understand that, right? You can do as you please on the Sabbath. The Sabbath doesn't own you. You own that day. It's your day. You understand, right? So you can get back to that Mattathias because this is the heavy part you about to bring out.
Good comprehend. Excellent breakdown.
I'm gonna jump back in a second. It's like
Nah, go ahead.
You
gonna clap in too. Like go back to verse. What was that? 39 in Maccabees.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 39. Now, when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof,
right? Understood what? That these brothers died because they didn't want to fight on the Sabbath because they didn't understand what keeping the Sabbath truly meant, as Cap just broke down. Keep going.
They mourned for them right sore.
They mourned from because that was their people. It was Israelites. Read on.
And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth.
Right. They're going to kill us too if we don't fight. Because here's one thing about Esau. He's the most subtle beast of the field.
Right.
He knows that we honor the Most High on the Sabbath, that we rest on the Sabbath. He knew that we opposed from working on the Sabbath because that was in the law. You understand? Israelites who own businesses, they weren't supposed to make other Israelites work or anybody at that matter. You understand? So the Greeks knew strategically when to strike us. Just like Esau just celebrated, and our people celebrated Thanksgiving, right? Who knows the history behind Thanksgiving, the actual date that stamped it all? It was 1637. 1637, and it was the Pequot Indians. It was a small village of 700 roughly native Indians, and the white man, the oppressor Salakia, wanted a certain mass of land, but the natives weren't giving it up. So what they did was they waited till the Pequot Indians went to sleep, and they barricaded the exits and burned them alive and celebrated it. And that's Thanksgiving. You understand? They are strategic in destruction and being destructive and being evil. Because remember, we read the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. If not, where and who is he? Who's more wicked than Esau? Who has done more wicked and evil in the earth? Nobody. So let's keep reading in Maccabees.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 40.
Go ahead.
And one of them said to another,
what do they say?
If we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against them.
Right? So that's what Mattathias, his sons, said, and the brothers with him. We're going to defend our family. We're going to defend our wives and our children, you see? And that's the spirit of the Most High, right? So now let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 1.
The book of 1 Maccabees chapter 3, verse 1.
Right.
Then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead.
Right. Now, Mattathias later on dies. Through the course of about 7 years, it was known as the Maccabean Revolt. In history, most historians would agree to that terminology, the Maccabean Revolt, where basically the sons of Mattathias and the brothers that they gathered with them fought against the Greeks and Antiochus and what they wanted done against us. We were going back and forth with the Greeks, and then we're going to pick it up right here, chapter 3, verse 1.
That's crazy. They call it a revolt.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
hey, that's deep. Yeah.
Right. You trying to keep the laws of your God, keep your culture intact. And they say you're revolting against the people that's, forcing you to do something that's against your religion. That's against your belief. You get what I'm saying? So they call it a revolt. It's like saying you're like, it's like giving you a crazy term. Right? Go ahead.
The narrative on us is that we revolted.
Yeah,
yeah, that's deep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Slave rebellion.
Right, slave rebellion. Slave rebellion. Like, they didn't want to go into slavery.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They didn't want to pick cotton no more. They rebelled against them.
Right.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 1. Then his son Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead. And all his brethren helped him.
Right.
And so did all they that held with his father. And they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel.
Right. We were going back and forth with the Greeks. Read on.
So he got his people great honor.
And this is about one thing about, you read about King David and you read about Moses. You read about Samson and the great things he did. You read about all, what's the brother name in the book of Judges? Ehud. You read about all these great men of the Lord. You can't forget to mention Judas Maccabeus, right? Hence the book of Maccabees, which who could tell me what the word Maccabee means? What does Maccabees mean? It means hammer, right? Keep going.
So he got his people great honor and put on a breastplate as a giant.
Right.
And girt his warlike harness about him.
Right.
And he made battles.
He made what?
Battles.
What did Maccabees do?
He made battles.
Judas Maccabeus, keep going.
Protecting the host with his sword.
He protected Israel with the sword. This is a brother who would lay down his life for his brothers. Keep going.
In his acts, he was like a lion. And like a lion's whelp roaring for his prey.
Keep going.
For he pursued the wicked and sought them out. And burnt up those that vexed his people.
Right.
Wherefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled.
Right.
Because salvation prospered in his hand.
Meaning the Most High was with this brother. Judas, this is a black man. That's what you got to remember most importantly, that this was a brother. Right? Keep going.
He grieved also many kings.
He grieved Antiochus and the Greeks. Keep going.
And made Jacob glad with his acts. And his memorial is blessed forever.
And that's what we doing here today. We remembering how we went back and forth with the Greeks, how we battled with the Greeks after they defiled our temples and ransacked our holy places. That's what they did. And then we had a courageous brother by the name of Mattathias and his sons and the leading the pack, so to speak, Judas Maccabeus, when his father died, aid Israel, fight on behalf of Israel. A brother who was a warrior and a soldier and valiant in armies, and the Lord was with this brother. And we read verse 7 again. He grieved also many kings and made Jacob glad with his acts, and his memorial is blessed forever. Right? Now let's go to chapter 4, verse 36 to show you what the Feast of Dedication is all about.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 4, verse 36.
Go ahead.
Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary.
So it came to a point where the Greeks surrendered because Judas Maccabeus, he was tearing them up. Him and the brothers that was going to war with him, the hundreds, almost thousands of brothers that was going to war with him on his behalf against the Greeks. The Greeks decided to surrender at one point. Go ahead.
Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate and the altar profaned.
So they came into the school and they saw it was empty. It needed to be cleaned. Go ahead.
And the altar profaned and the gates burned up and shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest or in one of the mountains. Yeah. And the priest's chambers pulled down. They rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their head.
You hear that, right? Keep going.
And fell down flat to the ground upon their faces.
Why did they do that? Why did they do that? Not to Zach. Okay, why did we mourn? Why did these brothers throw ashes on their head and tear their garments, their outer garments? Why did they do that? What did they just witness and behold and see? Go ahead. Yeah, they said it was grass growing out of the cracks and stuff that wasn't usual. You understand? And you got to remember, they grew up seeing this place, beautified. It was the Lord's place.
If we could, and even you say rent your clothes and throw ashes, you think about how black people mourn at a funeral. Right? Like black people at a funeral, they are mourning. You know what I'm saying? They jump in a casket. You get what I'm saying? They will be very, very sad. Some people would tear their clothes, throw themselves on the floor. That's just the spirit of Israel. That's how they. So when he says rent their clothes, that's what he means. Tear their clothes up, just sad and in despair. Go ahead,
right, kind of one kind. Keep going.
They rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their head and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces and blew an alarm with the trumpets and cried toward heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary.
Right.
So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones into an unclean place.
Keep going.
And when, as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down.
Right.
Lest it should be a reproach to them.
Right.
Because the heathen had defiled it.
This is where the heathen or the Greeks sacrificed pig. Just imagine a devil just putting a pig on here and slicing his throat. That was like, you know what? Just pull it all down, man. It's defiled. Right? Keep going.
Wherefore they pulled it down and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them.
Keep going.
Then they took whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former.
Right. They built a new altar. Read on.
And made up the sanctuary.
Go ahead.
And the things that were within the temple.
Keep going.
And hallowed the courts.
Keep going.
They made also new holy vessels.
Keep going.
And into the temple they brought the candlestick.
What's the candlestick? What's another name for the candlestick? Somebody. Ramat. The menorah. Get that brother a hand. The candlestick. Keep going.
And the altar of burnt offerings.
Keep going.
And of incense and the table.
Rebuilt everything. Go ahead.
And upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that they were upon the candlestick they lighted. That they might give light in the temple.
That they might what?
Give light in the temple.
Keep going.
Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table.
The lobe, the showbread, which is the show that the priests eat. Keep going.
And spread out the veils and finished all the works which they had begun to make.
Keep going.
Now on the 5 and 20th day of the 9th month, which is called the month of Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings, which they had made.
Right.
Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it.
Right.
Even in that was it dedicated with songs and citherns and harps and cymbals.
Keep going.
Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the Most High of heaven, who had given them good success.
Right, who gave them the victory. Keep going.
And so they kept the dedication of the altar.
They kept the what?
Kept the dedication of the altar 8 days.
Kept the dedication of the altar 8 days. Read on.
And offered burnt offerings with gladness. And sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise.
Keep going.
They decked also the forefront of the temple with
Keep going.
They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold.
Right.
And with shields.
And with what?
And with shields.
Keep going.
And the gates and the chambers they renewed.
Keep going.
And hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the people.
Right, you got to remember where we just came from. Our infants they used to hang the infants around the neck of the mother and make the mother live. Lynch the baby on her neck. You understand? Like that's what they used to do. Cruel things. Keep going.
For that the reproach of the heathen was put away. Moreover, Judas and his brethren with the whole congregation of Israel ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by the space of 8 days.
Right. You hear that? That's what these brothers decided. You say, you know what? This is something we have to remember every year throughout all our generations, how the Most High gave us the victory. He didn't forget us during the time when Antiochus, a king of fierce countenance, which we read in Daniel, the 8th chapter, came up against us and brought great slaughter and massacre to the children of Israel. Keep going.
From the 5 and 20th day of the month Caslu with mirth and gladness. At that time also they builded up the Mount Zion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down, as they had done before.
Right.
And they set there a garrison to keep it, and fortified Bethshura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea.
Right. Who's Idumea?
Officer. Izazan. Who's Idumea?
That's the Greek way of saying Edom. Idumea. Like if you read Isaiah 34 and 5, it mentions Idumea, but it's talking about Edomites. I have one last precept.
Go ahead.
Go to 2 Maccabees, chapter 10. All right, so I want to ask a couple questions as far as the Feast of Dedication. Why are we here today? Why are we here today? What are we remembering? Based on everything we just read. Go ahead. Okay. Come on.
I don't know how to word it. Back to what it was looking like before.
Think of the day. Think of today. Think of the name of today. You do. We rededicated, right? And what else? What does that mean? What does that embody? Like, what did we do? What did the brothers do? What did Judas Maccabees come into the school and do?
I don't want to say bread, but I can't word it. I know.
You're not listening now. Listen to what he's saying.
Right. We're gonna read it one more time. This is summarizing what we're remembering. We read in John 10 and 22 that Christ kept the feast of dedication. And Christ, in John it says, if any man abide in him, walk ye as him. Roughly paraphrasing. So let's do what he did. And he knew the history of it. We should know the history of it. Go to 2 Maccabees 10 and 1.
The book of 2 Maccabees.
1 through 9.
Chapter 10, verse 1. Now Maccabees and his company, the Lord guiding them, recovered the temple and the city.
Keep going.
But the altars which the heathen had built in the open street, and also the chapels, they pulled down.
Mm-hmm.
And having cleansed the temple, they made another altar. And striking stones, they took fire out of them, and offered a sacrifice after 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and set forth incense and lights and showbread. When that was done, they fell flat down and besought the Lord that they might come no more into such troubles.
Uh-huh.
But if they sinned any more against him, that he himself would chasten them with mercy, and that they might not be delivered unto the blasphemous and barbarous nations. Now upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, on the very same day it was cleansed again.
Ooh, that's heavy. The same day that they defiled is the same day we rebuilt it. Man, that's the Lord. Go ahead.
Even the 25th day of the same month, which is Caslu,
Mm-hmm.
and they kept 8 days with gladness, as in the feast of the tabernacles, remembering that not long before they had held the feast of the tabernacles, when as they wandered in the mountains and dens like beasts.
Keep going.
Therefore they bare branches and fair boughs and palms also, and sang psalms unto him that had given them good success in cleansing his place. They ordained also by a common statute and decree that every year those days should be kept of the whole nation of the Jews.
That every year those days should be kept of the whole nation of the Jews. Keep going.
And this was the end of Antiochus,
And that was the end of Antiochus,
called Epiphanes.
called Epiphanes. One more.
Now will we declare the acts of Antiochus Epiphanes, who was the son of this wicked man, gathering briefly the calamities of the wars.
And if you go home, like brother showed you, Antiochus Epiphanes, and Epiphanes means what? God in the flesh. That showed you what he thought about himself. He felt like he was God, so much so that he can convert you to being a Greek and throwing away being an Israelite. That was their goal, and they failed at that moment in time because of men like Judas Maccabeus and the men that went to war on his behalf against the Greeks. And we rededicated the temple, and that's why we're here today. So give those brothers a hand, man, for being noble. You understand what I'm saying? Get a Most High hand for allowing noble men to be present during that time and not sellouts. Because you have, just like you had sellouts back then, you have sellouts now. And just like you have noble men back then, you have noble men here now, and they're in the ISUPK. And it's like, with that, I'll pass the priest Cam Goodall.
I just want a few precepts real quick, right? Can you give me
Kind.
your body is your temple?
Kind.
The brother was talking about rededicating your temple, right? It's like the rededication to the temple. And the Bible talks about how your body is your temple, right? You need to rededicate yourself to the Most High. That's what you need to do. Rededicate yourself to the Lord, right? So now, we all come from different walks of life, right? You might have did a lot of things in the world that you're ashamed of, but the Lord said, "What? You forgiven for that. You come in here, you change your life, right?" The rededication now is your rededication to the truth, right? So read that for me, what your temple is.
1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16.
Uh-huh.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
Say it again.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
The Bible says, don't you know that you are the temple of God? Your body is the new temple of God. Y'all understand that, right? Your body is what's used to push the truth forward. Your body is what's used for the Lord to walk in. Give me that, hold that, right? Elijah, give me that precept, or so like, give me an officer that gives me walk in the spirit, not in the flesh, right?
Galatians 5 and 7.
Galatians 5 and 7. Read that from the top, though.
Come. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17.
Uh-huh.
If any man defile the temple of God, it's like it. Know ye not that you are the temple of God?
Go ahead.
And that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?
The Spirit of God dwelleth in where?
You.
Where?
You.
You understand, right? You don't have to be in a building. The Spirit of God is in you, if you want it to be. Now the question is, how do you get the Spirit of God in you? By keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. By doing exactly what the Bible says to do. Y'all understand that, right? So if you do what the Bible says, then you can have the Spirit of God. You can walk with the Spirit of God. You can have the real faith, right? Go ahead.
Kind. Verse 17. If any man defile the temple of God.
But if you defile your temple, right? If you defile what the Lord gave you, how you defile your temple? Somebody raise their hand. Kapar. Perfect, right? You getting high. Getting high. You getting high, you defiling your temple, man. You buying whores, you defiling your temple. You understand that, right? Give me another one. What people do now?
Tattoos.
Tattoos. Give me some more.
Sin.
Yeah, get specific.
Okay.
Right.
Eat pork.
Eat pork. Right. That's what we're talking about. Right. All these things defile your temple, and it distance you from the Most High. You understand that? And now when you distance yourself from the Most High, the Lord does not look upon you no more. And when the Lord stops looking upon you, that's when you're close to death. That's how old people die, right? The Lord stops looking at old people. Because when you're old, you lived your life. And the Lord looks away from you now. He was looking at you your whole life. Then you get up in age. And now it's time for you to go. So he looks away from you. That's why they get cancer. They die of certain things because there's nothing else they can do. But when the Lord stops looking at you in your young ages, you got a problem. That's why brothers die so young in the world today. You understand that, right? The Lord looked away from you because you defiled your temple and you didn't dedicate yourself to what the Lord wanted you to, right? Keep going.
If any man defile the temple of God, him shall the Most High destroy.
Him shall what?
Shall the Most High destroy.
If you defile the temple, which is your body, the Lord will destroy you. Right? Go ahead.
For the temple of the Most High is holy, which temple ye are.
You understand? Read it one more time.
For the temple of the Most High is holy.
Because the temple of the Most High is holy. Your body does not belong to you. Everybody understand that, right? Your body that you live in, you think it's yours, it's not. That's the Lord's body. Right? Read it again.
Verse 17. If any man defile the temple of God, him shall the Most High destroy.
Keep going.
For the temple of God is holy.
The temple of God is holy. What does it mean to be holy? To be what? To be separate, right? How many of y'all was separate on Thursday? Or was y'all okay, good. Most I give yourself a hand then. Give yourself a hand. Now I wanted to see who was gonna be right. So it means to be whole, it means to be separate, right? Separate from what? Separate from the world. Right. That's all. It's separate from the world. Spiritually separate. Spiritually. You physically, you see sinners all the day. You see your mother, right? She's a sinner. You see your father. You see some of y'all don't have a father. You see people in the world who do things against the Lord. You with them physically, but not with them spiritually. Y'all understand, right? Keep going.
If any man defile the temple of God, him shall the Most High destroy.
Keep going.
For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are.
Which temple ye are. Any more on that?
Nah,
y'all understand this, right? You're the temple. So don't destroy the temple. Don't defile your temple, or the Lord is going to destroy you. You talking about rededication. If you're a sinner, right? There is a sinner's prayer that the Lord would look upon you if you do it. Anybody know the meaning of repent? Raise your hand. Tell me what repent is.
Change.
To change, right? If you repent, to repent is to truly change your character and your actions, right? You can ask for forgiveness all the time, but if you do the same thing, you'll never get the forgiveness that you're looking for from the Lord. You understand? The Lord can look upon you and say, well, you haven't changed. Therefore, judgment should come. Now, if you do change, the Lord can rescind judgment. You understand? He can take away what he had coming for you and give you new life, give you new breath. But you have to rededicate yourself. Right? You have to say a prayer. Give me Psalms 51:1. Read where you at though.
Galatians.
Galatians 5:7, all right? And also give me Jeremiah 2:33.
Not 7 is 5:16. Yep. What? Galatians 5:16. This I say then, walk in the Spirit.
Walk in what?
In the Spirit.
Walk in what?
The Spirit.
Walk in the Spirit. What does it mean to walk in the Spirit? Anybody know? Not Zach? Walking, I take Most High Christ. Give that brother a hand, right? Walk in the zeal of the Most High. It's to not walk in your flesh, right? What does your flesh want to do? Your flesh wants to get high. You understand, right? Your flesh wants you to. You think this is what your flesh wants you to do? In your mind, your flesh wants you to feel good. But in the spiritual realm, your flesh wants to destroy you. You understand? How do you know? Because smoking cigarettes feels good, right? But smoking cigarettes gives you cancer, right? Having sex with some random whore, right? That feels good, but you can get STD, right? Those things can happen to you, right? It feels good to do the things that your flesh wants, but it's physically destroying you, right? And spiritually. Keep going.
Kind. This I say then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh.
You understand that, right? Walk in the spirit, and you should not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Now, is that an easy thing to do? No, it's not. But that's the condition of the battle. You understand? That's what it's for. That's what you're here for. Your purpose in life is to conquer your flesh so you can be a spiritual person. How many people say, oh, I'm spiritual? You don't even know what it means to be spiritual because you ain't conquered your flesh. You have demons that attack you constantly that you can't fight off because you don't got the tools, right? So now you come in here to find the tools. You come here to find the tools and get the tools to conquer your flesh so you can repent. Y'all understand? So once you do that, then you can rededicate yourself to your temple, right? Keep going.
Verse 17, Galatians 5:17. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit.
The flesh lusteth against the spirit, meaning what? They're at war. You understand? It's at war. What's at war? Your conscience, right? Your conscience is constantly at war because why? You know what's right and wrong. So you're constantly at war with yourself. That's why you always defeated. Brothers looking defeated and they on alcoholism, right? They're getting drunk out their mind. They're trying to lose themselves off pills, right? They're trying to pop all the pills and feel numb, right?
Right.
That's what they do. Brothers in the world, right? They'll get pills. They'll pop pills just so they don't feel nothing. They literally say, I ain't feel nothing. I had sex with a woman. I popped this pill and I didn't, I didn't feel nothing for an hour. That's the whole point, is to lose yourself, right? You don't want to become that. You don't want to become that, right? Keep going.
For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And these are contrary.
These are what?
Contrary.
Go ahead.
The one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
So that ye cannot do the things that ye would.
Go ahead.
But if ye be led by the spirit.
But if you be led by the spirit, now, you want to be led by the spirit, right? Being led by the spirit in layman terms is to do what's right. That's all that means. It's to do what's right. That's all. That's what it means to be led by the spirit. It's by thinking before you act. Having self-control. Y'all understand, right? All those things. Keep going.
Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath.
Those are all the things of the flesh. All the things. Celebrating Thanksgiving, going to the Christian church, being weak up under your woman. You get what I'm saying? Give me some more. What else did it say in there?
Drunkenness.
Drunkenness. Go ahead.
Murders.
Go ahead.
Envying.
Being a hater. Don't be a hater, man.
Right.
You see someone doing better than you in life, congratulate them. Ask them, how can I get there? That's what you should do. Don't be a hater. That's a very insecure trait of you. You understand? Keep going. Any more? Salaki.
That's it on.
No sweat. Now give me Romans 7:18. What was you holding out? Jeremiah? Psalms 51. Psalms 51:1. Let me get this for you. This is what you should go home and do. And this is step one to rededicating yourself, right? This is a piece of dedication, right? This is how you rededicate yourself to your temple, right? Psalms 51:1. Go ahead.
Psalms chapter 51, verse 1.
To
the chief musician, a psalm of David.
This is a psalm of David. Go ahead.
When Nathaniel the prophet came unto him after he had gone into Bathsheba.
Go ahead. After he what?
He had gone into Bathsheba.
After he followed his flesh. Y'all understand, right? This is after he sinned against God, right? After he slept with another man's woman, right? He slept with another man's woman, sent her man into the middle of the war so he can die, so he can have her in secret. But the Lord killed their son. So now this is his prayer to the Lord. after he know he committed a sin, after he went into Bathsheba. Right? Go ahead.
Have mercy upon me.
Have what?
Have mercy upon me.
First thing you should ask for is mercy. When the Lord said he's great in power and slow in anger, but he's also great in wrath.
Right.
You understand? Why you think you're not dead now? Because of his mercy. Everybody in this room should be dead, but because of his mercy, we're alive. We have opportunity to change. Right? Go ahead.
Oh, the power. According to
Right. Oh, Yahweh. Right? That's
Oh,
what he's
Yahweh.
saying. Go ahead.
according to thy loving kindness, according unto the multitude of thy tender mercy.
Right. And Salaki, my bad. He's saying according to your what?
According unto the multitude of thy tender mercy.
Go ahead.
Blot out my transgressions.
Blot out my transgressions, man. Clear me for my sins. What is a transgression? The breaking of the law. You understand? If you transgress the law, you broke. That's a sin according to the Bible, right? What's that? John 3 and 4.
Okay.
Right. So if you transgress the law, that's a sin, right? So David is asking the Most High. Give me a second. Let me Chronicles, right, where it says the Lord doesn't hear or He hears you if you turn your.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? Read again, Salakia.
Oh, Yahweh. According to thy loving kindness.
Go ahead.
According unto the multitude of thy tender mercies.
According to the multitude of your tender mercies, right? Go ahead.
Blot out my transgression. Wash me thoroughly.
Wash me thoroughly. Now, you take this home, right? We're going to keep reading. You take this home. You say this privately. You say this privately to the Most High. And you start your rededication. Keep going.
For mine iniquity.
And
cleanse me.
And what?
Sin.
And cleanse me from my sins. Go ahead.
For I acknowledge.
For what?
For I acknowledge.
For what?
For I acknowledge.
What's the first part of changing? Is acknowledging that you did something wrong. Right? If a child goes to his father and says, yeah, I know what I did was wrong. I shouldn't have did that. I shouldn't. Go ahead. If you go to your father and say, Salakia, I shouldn't have did that. What I did was wrong. Don't you think your judgment will be a little less horrible? Right? Wouldn't your father be like, well, damn, you took all the anger I was going to let off on you, right? And you took it for yourself. And that's honorable. You understand? The Lord will look at you like you're honorable because you acknowledge what you did was wrong. Go ahead.
For I acknowledge my transgression.
I acknowledge my sins. Go ahead.
And my sins is ever before me.
And my sins are ever before me. It's clear I sin. Go ahead.
Against thee.
Mm-hmm.
Thee only have I sinned and done this evil in thy sight. That thou mightest be justified when thou speakest.
Keep going.
And be clear when thou judgest.
What verse you at?
Verse 4, sir.
All right, take me to the end of 5. Keep going.
Behold, I was sharpened in iniquity. And in sin did my mother conceive me.
I was shapen in iniquity, right? Read again.
I was shapen in iniquity.
I was shapen in sin. Go ahead.
And in sin did my mother conceive me.
Go ahead.
Behold, thou dearest truth in the inward parts, and in my hidden parts thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Right, you understand? So he asked the Lord for forgiveness and asked him to put wisdom into his body so he can make the right decisions. Wisdom is the ability to make the right decision. You understand? He's a smart brother, but he lacked wisdom. Why did he lack wisdom? Because he slept with another man's woman. Y'all understand that, right? That's why he said, please give me wisdom to not do something like that again. Right? You got that up? Where we at?
2 Chronicles 7 and 14.
Now, this is another part, right? I'm gonna give you 2 more preachers and we're gonna be done. Go ahead.
2 Chronicles 7 and 14. If my people.
If what?
My people.
Go ahead. If who?
My people.
All people.
My people.
Right. So now we all know that God is a people of the children of Israel, right? We all know that God, Ma is a possessive noun. He possesses this people. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians who God loves, right? So he said, if my people, not all people, if my people, go ahead,
which are called by my name, shall humble themselves.
Shall what?
Humble themselves.
Man, humble yourself, man. You know you a sinner. You know it. Humble yourself, man. Go ahead.
And pray and seek my face.
And pray and seek my face. How do you seek the Lord's face? How? Man, give it a shot. How do you seek the Lord's face? Who's that back there? Not Zach. There you go, right? By doing the right thing. Let's say if I'm in the world, I don't know how to constantly seek him. Right? I don't know how to constantly seek the Lord, right? What do I do? What do I do if I don't know the truth and I'm constantly seeking? What do I do? Go ahead. You can't, I mean, yeah, that's true. Eliza. I mean, yeah, that's what you should do, but that's not the answer. Remark.
Change.
Huh? Change. That's how I find it. If I'm constantly seeking, I have to change first. Then maybe I'll find it, right? Keep going.
Okay. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways.
And turn from your what?
Wicked ways.
And turn from your what?
Wicked ways.
You got to turn from your wicked ways. Right? Go ahead.
Then will I hear from heaven.
Go ahead.
And will I forgive their sins and heal their land.
You understand that? Then the Lord will hear you. Right now, you probably not even getting heard. You wondering why your situation won't change? Because you probably ain't changed yourself. Right. Y'all understand, right? But at the moment you change yourself, maybe you might get heard and your situation might change. That's up to you, though. Right? Any more? Let me get Romans 7 and 18. And then who got Jeremiah 2 and 33 and we done?
You got to highlight this out, Romans 7 and 18?
This goes back to the flesh, right? 2 and 33. The whole reason why we in this situation is because of Jeremiah 2 and 33. We'll read that in a second.
The book of Romans, chapter 7, verse 18.
For
I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing.
Y'all understand that, right? This is Paul. Paul saying what? I know in my flesh there is no good thing. How many times I read this? All the time? Because I know that in my flesh there is nothing that dwells there that's good. Right?
Right.
How many of y'all used to smoke weed? Raise your hand. Everybody. All right. Everybody in the room smoked weed, right? Y'all did coke too, right? Raise your hand. Well, I was joking on that part. Good night. brother, like shit. Coke was amazing. But listen, I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna tell you right now. All those things still are amazing. Weed is amazing. Coke is amazing. But you can't do it though.
Right.
You understand? You can't do it. That's why in your flesh dwelleth no good thing. You want to get high. But getting high is the first step to dying. You understand? They said, I remember growing up, they said, weed is a gateway drug. I said, get out of here. Weed is a gateway drug. That was a true statement. Weed you'll get on pills, coke, whatever other drug you want, right? So you'll do those things because your soul wants it. Your soul wants it. Your flesh wants those things because, you've been molested when you was a child. You was molested. Your uncle molested you. I understand you. So getting high is what needs to happen. Your father left you. So getting high is definitely the answer. You understand? Your mom hates you. So getting high is the answer. And I get it. I understand that. But the Lord said no excuses. You understand that? The Lord does not care about any of those things. He doesn't say, well, she got molested when she was 8 years old, so she can get high. There's none of that. Y'all hear me? The Lord requires you to be molested at 8 years old change yourself, fully heal, and serve him. That's what he requires. That sounds crazy, right? How can I fully heal from being raped at 8 years old? You can. Now, the person that did it to you, he needs to, die or, something, right? Oh, we understand that. But the Lord requires you to change. He doesn't want you to be that same 8-year-old girl forever. Y'all understand? Keep going.
For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me.
The will to do those things is present with me, for sure. The will to get high, yeah, that's with me, for sure. Go ahead.
But how to perform that which is good, I find not.
How to perform which is good, I find not. Go ahead.
For the good that I would, I do not.
For the good that I would do, I will not. Go ahead.
But the evil which I would not, that I do.
The evil that I would not, that I do. He's breaking it down to you, and he's giving you what? Your life. Your life is about this. Your life is about making the right decision and how horrible it feels to make the right decision. You understand? Right. Yeah, he's telling you, yeah, I want to get high, but then I know if I get high, this will happen to me and I'll be a sinner against God. And now I don't feel good because I can't go to sleep without getting high. Right? So I guess I'll be up till 7 in the morning there. That's what Paul said. Y'all get that? I guess I got to be up till 7 in the morning and I go to work at 8. I do that instead of getting high. Right? Drop that. Give me Jeremiah 2:33 and we'll end it with that.
The book of Jeremiah, the 2nd chapter and the 33rd verse. Why trimmest thou thy way?
Say it again.
Why trimmest thou thy way?
When we talked about the dedication, right, when Tabawan was, give Tabawan a hand one more time. Shalak, if I could. He was giving y'all a History Channel breakdown on this piece of dedication. I was listening like, damn, they called it the what? Rocket. That was heavy. So now he's saying that he breaking it down, and he was talking about the dedication, right? And he was saying, this is what we went through. This is what we did. We wanted to be like them. We chose to be like them. We wanted to be like the heathens round about us, right or wrong? We thought how their life they live, they're prosperous off their life. So we should do that. We should serve their God. We should do the things they do. But that's why we shouldn't. Y'all understand, right? We should never be like our enemies. We should never be like the people who oppress us and put us in poverty and enslaved us. We should never want to be like them. Right? You want to say something?
Nah, son.
Go ahead. Read that for me from the top. You got that out?
Jeremiah 2:33. Why trimmest thou thy way to seek love?
Don't ever trim your ways to find love, man. Don't do it. In your personal life or even you as an Israelite man or woman. Don't do it. Don't trim who you are. Don't take away who you are to find love. You'll never find love that way. You understand? People remember a lot of women, they like to say, you better love me for who I am and what I have. Right? That's a good statement. I believe that. You should be like that. They should love you for who you are. Unapologetically Israelite. You understand? Unapologetically a priest of God. That's who you need to be. Don't trim your ways for nobody. Don't trim your ways because you need Esau to love you. You need Esau to do this for you and do that. You know what they got to do? They got to shave their beard, right?
Right.
I got to shave my beard and I got to get this lineup. For some reason, I got to get this lineup, right? I got to give me some more, Karatazar. I got to my mom's mad at me. I didn't come to Thanksgiving. Oh, boo-hoo. Right, I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Don't trim your ways for love, man. One more time from the top.
Jeremiah 2:33. Why trimmest thou thy way to seek love?
Don't trim your ways to seek love. The Lord asking you too, through his prophet Jeremiah. Why trim your ways to seek love? Why? Go ahead.
Therefore hast thou also taught the wicked ones thy ways.
You done taught the wicked ones your ways. You done taught the white man that what? If he give you some, you'll change who you are. You'll give up your culture. You go in the mall, right? You go in the mall, find a Muslim, right? Some Muslim cat. And break them down, right? Break them down and tell them, how it's okay to eat pork in this precept, right? And he'll be like, yeah, it is okay. It is okay. He trims his way to find love because he's trying to sell you something. You get what I'm saying? Don't you ever do that.
Right.
Don't you ever do that. How can you ever dedicate yourself to something if you trim your ways all the time? You got to be a staunch believer in this, or this ain't the place for you. Y'all understand? How can your body be the temple of God if you're a trimmer? What you need to do is blossom. More in biblically terms, you need to let your light shine. You understand? At all times. With that, I'm gonna pass class over to priest and officer. Who's gonna go? Oscar Ward?
Yeah, come on.
Oscar Ward, man.
Men of Israel, mind you, stand. We're going to give one courtesy salute to the teachers. Men of Israel, Amajim Shabbat, Amajim, Barak.
Yahweh Shem Shabbat. Yahweh Shem Shabbat.
We're going to start face the Arwakim. Arwakim means sisters. Arwakim means please stand. Men of Israel, we're going to give one courtesy salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Amajim Shabbat, Amajim, Barak. Yadi Matah, dismissed.